Florian, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me with you, and I'm excited about our conversation, and I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you. I want to begin with the incredible book that you have written about vocation. And I was wondering if you could share with us the inspiration behind the book and why vocation matters so much today.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, honestly, there was a journey to it because I was brought up in a way where you're well educated, you get a job, and you do what you're supposed to do. Incrementally, have a better job, more income, get your family, get your house, and that's all good because that's what my parents wanted me to be. Actually, I wanted to become a stand up comedian when I was 18. But my father talked me out of that, saying, maybe you want to study something normal first because that great artist not making a good living. So I went into that and went all the way until the age of 33. And that's when I hit kind of a aha moment where I said, I'm not living my life. I'm living the life I'm supposed to be. But who am I? I don't know what I want. But the next 33 years, I don't know what to do. And this was the part where I got really started to struggle. The whole thing was triggered when I had a coaching session in the company, which was meant for me to be better performing. The coaching was actually psychotherapy. And I learned through that I had to drop my shield, how to drop my shield, because I was hiding behind a, smart as business shield. Everything is good. You have to be successful. You have to be strong. And no matter what, life is tough. And that's the part where I connected to my inner child. And that's when I actually recognized at that time that I have been the absent subject of my own education. I don't know myself. I learned about everything else to make a living, but not how to live my life. And so that's where I said, okay, I don't know what it is. I only know that what I'm doing right now is not me. And so I had then a pivot. Yeah, and this was a gradual pivot. And over that pivot and learnings, I did a lot of personal development methodologies just to learn about myself because my education would give it to me. And that taught me more about myself. Yeah, I left also a big corporate job. I took the risk. I went into a phase which was very difficult for me, but I just wanted to figure out what I want because it wasn't. And so I ended up what I do today, which is impact investing, where you use capital as a force for good, and there are more stories around to tell. But when I started doing this, people came to me saying, Florian, you do impact. How can I do impact? And my question to them was, what is your vocation? And people say, I don't know. Okay, here's some exercises. You figure this out because I won't tell you. Yeah. And when you've figured out, then we take the next step. What with the vocation is a theory of change? What could you actually do with it? And then the next step is once we have figured this out, we go into what sector or community you could actually get involved in to contribute. And then the next step is actually now we can do a personal, professional business plan, your vision board of what you actually want to achieve and so on. So this was more empirical with many, many people. And then these people said, Florian, it helped me a lot. This changed my life. You need to write it down. And at first I said, what do you mean with writing down? Yeah, you need to write a book. I have never written a book. So I did it on my own, finished the whole thing. It wasn't very difficult because at the end, I was just putting my story, the science of the what I call vocating. If you dedicate yourself to a profession, to your vocation professionally, you are vocating, sign of vocating, and then the 7 steps. And that's where then I reached out to the editor of choice, who has kindly accepted me, and then a whole different journey started. And so this was basically my story on that, how to come up to write the book on vocation, how to align your purpose with your profession. But also, it came actually from suffering. So my hope is for people to figure out earlier, not having to go through a roller coaster life, how to vocate. And I'm really, really, by the way, concerned today in AI world, because if we keep being educated like in the past, where we have a, how to say that, where we have, oh, if everything is referenced outside. Yeah, we are told what to do. Yeah, we get some guidance what to study. We do this to have a good job and make a living. It's all external reference. And now in the AI world, I'm really concerned because the machine will start telling people what to do. You ask everything to the machine, and the machine will say what, and we just execute. This is even worse. So I would like to invert it and say first people figure out what they want to do, is the human agency. And once they've figured out, then they use the machine to do this. Yeah. And so this is where a little bit the book comes from. And now into also a new journey in my life around that topic, which I so much care about.
You mentioned that there's 7 steps to your framework. Would you be willing to share for our audience those 7 steps?
Yes, with pleasure. And again, it's meant to be a guide. Doesn't have to be exactly in this order. Some people sometimes have more clarity about vocation, and then it's more of the execution. Some others don't know the vocation, but have a skill set of a profession having learned, and you can combine that. So just take it as a general frame. But yes, the intention is it's 7 steps, because the first 4 step, as I said before, is more for you to start vocating. And then the other 3 steps is actually for you to have the stamina to execute and to stay on course. Yeah, because sometimes life shows up and here's a carrot and there's a carrot and you might be deviated. But once you leave your vocation, life is not the same. But I can go a little bit into this. Step number 1 is you want to find out your vocation. And you can have several vocations. Nobody has to tell you the vocation. It's for you to figure that out. Yeah, it's go inside. So therefore, you need to cut out the noise, which is very difficult today. We get so many information, so much influence from people, from the social media, and from much more. So therefore, the first portion is to cut out the noise, and you can find that through mindfulness. You can go contemplation. You can go whatever. Religious people might find it in there. You can go to the mountains. You can do sports, and certain things when you come to extremes, so that you only listen to you. And that's the part where you then go inside to say, what are the things I really care? By the way, very often when you're young, age 5 to 10, you have these dreams of contributing, unfiltered dreams, not biased dreams, how you want to contribute. That could also help, even though vocations can change over time. So this is my vocation. It's my whole life. You don't have to justify anything to anyone. It is your decision. Once you found that, then you develop a theory of change. Okay, let me give you an example. Yeah, I was the other day was giving a course to the MBA students at Oxford University. Yeah, on vocation, and one of the students said, "Florian, I've studied so hard to learn financial modeling, and AI will make my job obsolete, because AI will do financial modeling better than I can ever do." I said, "Let's set aside. What's your vocation?" So we did an exercise. He came back, I care about nature, and I really, really care about climate change and the impact on humanity. I said, perfect. So your theory of change on your vocation to contribute to humanity, yeah, being affected by climate change, is climate adaptation. That's your theory of change. And there's a lot of literature to do, there are things to go, okay. Now that you know, actually, you can use your skill set, your superpower, being good in finance and having learned financial modeling and other financial, metrics. You can use it and combine this, so that when you go into the sectors and community, yeah, you might have the insurance sector. Insurance people need to measure the climate impact and change, and you are good because you have the education component to it. You can go into financial services, investment funds, pension funds, whatever. You can go into corporations, which have to deal with climate change, the effect and supply chain on other things, and calculate that and have to do with the financial component. You can go into a smaller company. You can create a startup. You can join companies which are providing solutions to climate adaptation. There are many things you can do professionally in this. And that leaves you after that, you to the next stage to do your personal professional business plan, your vision board. And this means that you want to define now, okay, it's clear. I have my superpower, financial modeling or finances. I have my vocation, climate adaptation. I know these are the sectors I want to go in. Now let me translate this into how I want to execute it. How do I see myself there? Where do I start with an entry job here or maybe something there, so that you really design your path, yeah, towards vocating. That's the 4th step. The next 3 steps are really more for the execution. Yeah, so that you stay in the North Star. For example, one part is you need to understand in order to truly contribute, it should not be about you, it should be about them. Yeah, so think big for them, not for you. That's the topic. And here's one interesting and important thing to differentiate. You need to differentiate between, so that's it, imagination and intuition. And it's difficult because both are based on a desire for you. You have a dream. Yeah, let's put it in my words. I love music and I'm a hobby musician. If I would like to be a rock star, it is a fantasy. So even if I get there, most likely I will not be fulfilled. And you have a lot of artists out there suffering for many reasons, mental drugs or some things, because it is not fulfilling to be a rock star because it's about you. But if you like to do music and to play music and it's about playing music and performing, successful or not, people in front of you or not, it's very different than you on intuition. And you can translate to anything. Yeah, where we need to go away from success being money and fame, yeah, and recognition, to intuition and contribution. Yeah, and that's the differentiation and that phase. If you understand this is not about me, it's about them. The next step is also then to deal with stress. You need to differentiate. There are two types of stress. There is the stress you put yourself up to because I want to go this path. So therefore it's a challenge. Adrenaline goes up, endorphins go up. It's very healthy for you. It's like in sports. I want to go there and I want to achieve this because it's you wanting to do this. If you don't do this, if you're in a job which is just a job to have some money, you might lose a job, somebody might get you might sick. There are many factors which then affect you negatively, and it will affect negatively to your health. And so therefore, it's also differentiation. If you understand, if you're vocating and if you're zone, the power of that because you want to do this gives you energy and is very positive, even though stressful because life is stressful. And then the seventh step is actually you want to measure. You want to measure the different ways, and I got some examples. Is am I actually vocating? Who am I contributing to? Because you now understood it's not about you, it's about them. So you need to have things in place where you actually can be sure that you are incrementally contributing. And that's basically to measure your impact. And so those are the 7 steps which I guide people through. Yeah. And it's beautiful because once you're in your zone, what you do is greater than you. And it's a big energy provider. Life will be hard. Yeah. That's what life is. We're all fragile. And the big portion is just to understand what type of success you're looking for, to understand if you contribute, it's actually something which is greater than you. And it's funny, it is not normal because we are educated in a way saying you want to be successful, it's money and fame, recognition of what you do and how much you earn. And none of those actually is good for you because you only feed your ego. And if you look at people at their deathbed, many, many, many examples, what they regret normally is certain things not having done for others, not having loved, not having spent time, many of these things. And so that's the part where I ask people very often, even on stage, when I give a keynote, the question is, let me send you off with one question at your deathbed. Other than having had a family and a bank account, what's your legacy? What's your contribution? And that's when people think different.
Love the framework. Thank you so much for sharing. I know you have 5 kids.
Mhm.
How do you guide your own kids or the younger generation in this AI world in order for them to find their own vocation?
What a profound and difficult question. So I can only state, because I'm a parent, I to do the best. I love my youngsters. I to do the best I can. But actually, when I started to write this book, and it's actually 3 books, it's a trilogy. I can go into that. But the first book, when I wrote this, and my editor said, would you have a designer for your cover page? That I don't, it's not, I'm out of my comfort zone. And so they sent me some templates. They're all academic teaching books, a little bit standard. I asked my kids, and 2 of my kids, designed the cover page, which I find a beautiful cover page of the book, very meaningful, of a small person into the waves out there, into the life, and what life could mean. Yeah, and again, a wave can hit you, or you can ride the waves. This is a little bit the same, but specifically, then none of them has read my book. Maybe now my second daughter will, and I recognize. Look, the way initially when I started to talk to people to help them one by one by one, and the recommendation, hey, do you want to write a book? You can help much more people. Absolutely fine. I actually thought about it. The way to really go viral is through technology. Yeah. So now I'm working on the gamification of my 7 steps on a platform for people to go through this in a light way, because the way to really reach not just my kids, but many youngsters is through technology. And that goes back to my previous comment, Andrea, because if I'm in my zone and I want to contribute, which is what I am, I want to leverage the machine. And this is where I actually want to leverage AI, technology, social media, which is beautiful because you can reach many people at a fraction of a cost. I hope later this year we should have a first version of the app together, because the book just came out last October. This is where I think and I hope also it will embrace my kids, because it's very difficult, to your kids to tell you should, because they have to figure this out. But it's a great dialogue to have. Yeah, and especially my eldest ones, which are beyond, because 16 to 18 or 20 is not best age to tell a youngster what to do. It comes normally after or before. But that's the one where I have now great conversation with my elder daughters, just around the topic, and I say, honey, you are actually vocating. And the second one, maybe you want to read the book, and she's going through. But again, it's not about the book. For me, it's really for people to create awareness that your dream and your answer lies inside. So dare to go inside, dare to pick a vocation and to develop it so that you can actually start vocating.
When we look at the way the education system is made, and when kids that are 16, 17, 18 have to choose a path to pursue in terms of a career, whether they may want to go on a technical route, creative route, or let's just say a more academic route or a university route. I often speak with my husband, and we say, "Wow, it's a very young age for these youngsters to actually choose a path, a career that they may want to pursue." And we've had our own conversations in our family, and I was curious to know if you feel that there's a need to change something at the education level in order to facilitate the process of these young kids determining which path to pursue that will define the professional path that they may pursue.
My clear answer is yes. And that goes back to, again, my experience understanding that I am the absent subject of my own education. And again, even sometimes people picking a job, maybe a doctor, because it's kind of great, you make a good living, and it's, yeah. So I feed my ego because from an fame and fortune perspective, it's a great job to have. But if you are not in a vocation with this job, it's brutally hard. Or you go chef cook. If you don't have a vocation, why would you do this? But this goes in the sense where you combine things, understanding you pick a vocation and then you make it a profession. So one of the things actually I miss is in the educational curriculum, vocation as part of this. You have some schools, the methodology a little bit, but it's not necessarily linked. Yeah, you take your vocation and now you live with it and you make a job out of this. This is was some miss. But for me, I actually, the first article on LinkedIn I wrote over 10 years ago, it says, why is education not vocational? Which in hindsight was for me when I was struggling because I was in a job, but something didn't fit. I didn't fit. And again, I was in a healthcare company, great colleagues, real good products and solutions for patients, throughout the world, was always good, but I wasn't in my vocation. I actually ended up there most likely because my father was a doctor. Yeah, and I picked a healthcare company later on. Yeah, as a consequence, not because I actually thought I want to be there. Actually, my father asked me if I would consider becoming a medical doctor. And I said, no, I don't see myself. And then, boom, I ended up in a healthcare conglomerate, yeah, and corporation, and grew into that. But that goes back. So, ideally, as we are educated, I think it's important that we should embrace the dreams of youngsters and children, try to play around this in a parallel path while we get the information, the maturity, and the skill set for us to sustain in life that is actually married with. Because in my book, I cite also Ikigai. And Ikigai is very beautiful. And I was years back, even in the company, teaching some Ikigai. But then what do you do with it? Are you really into that? What is an Ikigai? Because if you don't have the vocational component, you cannot be in the Ikigai. It doesn't fit. Because if the world's needed is the vocation, not because I'm selling Coca-Cola means that the world's needed. Nothing against Coca-Cola, but the point is really only the four elements are there if what you do contributes to people and planet, or people or planet. And that's the part where I had struggled at this time. I love the Ikigai. It's so great. You're in the center. But for me, actually, you're only in the center if you vocate, because then it's your profession. You make money from it. The world's needed. It's you have all four questions answered of the Ikigai, and that goes back. It should start in the education curriculum.
If we look in the corporate world, do you believe leaders have a responsibility to help orient their people to find their own purpose?
Beautiful question. So the answer to you is yes. My own experience in that. So the first book is How to Align Your Purpose with Your Profession, because that's when you start and when you are about going into the one. And it's usually 18 to 28. Yeah, that bracket is typically, should start earlier, the vocational education. But again, that's the one, which is the first book. The second is How to Align Your Purpose with Your Organization, with your business. Yeah, and again, it's like the same structure of the book, that I tell my story now from a business perspective in an organization, my roller coaster life, then the science of vocating in organizations, and the 7 steps. And then the third book is, and by the way, this is the age of in the 30s, when you have a leading position, either in a corporation or you have an entrepreneur and the company is big enough. Now, those are the things where you're in this leadership position, what you say, where you can actually embrace purpose. And it's really amazing, because very often the companies don't have to change what they do. But if they understand what the greater contribution of the company is beyond selling a product and getting paid for it, it's really incredible, because you have a stakeholder view instead of a shareholder view. Your net promoter score goes through the roof. You reposition the core values of the company, but on a greater meaning than just having a great product to sell or a great service to sell. And this starts very interesting, because it's sometimes not very far away. And then people go like, wow, this is when you align purpose. Now, in the context of an organization, which is people. And also this has an effect on the brand value, perceived value of overall profitability, the value of a company, enterprise value. It goes really all through. Which leads me to my third book. Now, for people usually 35 or 40 plus, it's How to Align Purpose with your capital. How can you make money meaningful? Which is, I do impact investing. This is my day job. And that is the third vertical, which is the third book. But it's sequentially more in some age stratus, and also a career life professionally over time for people. And it doesn't mean that you have to have a company and you sell it for millions. No, it's really for you to understand at a certain moment you can think about donations, you can think about impact investing, others. How can you make money meaningful?
And in the impact investment world, do you believe capital today is moving fast enough towards long-term value, or are we still addicted to short-term wins?
Yeah, it's a great question. Is one of the problems, because if we're only looking at fame and fortune, and you make profit under whatever mean, yeah, it's my money, my company, my country, my religion, or my whatever, we are not contributing. And so normally the financial markets are set just to gain more in value. That's it. It doesn't matter what they invest in, it's actually secondary. And investors hop according to sectors or what is new, what is here. AI is right now, everybody goes in AI. Whether this is good or bad for humanity, it's actually secondary. It's just you want to bet on and you want to have a capital gain. And this is because it goes back to our fundamental flaw, psychological flaw, that we are born very fragile. That we're brought up to say you need to be sustained in life, you need to be here, out there, and it's rough. And so you put your ego up front to protect yourself, which is fame and fortune. Yeah. And this does not help us. Does not neither help a planet with now close to 9 billion people. How do you feed them? How do you do that? Yeah, without killing each other. And so there is a component where you have to think through, can I use, if I invest, yeah, and I invest the same asset classes, you have equity or debt, you can, I mean, there are many ways you don't, but again, if you understand that the capital should have an intention besides the financial return, which is capital as a force for good. Sometimes donations, sometimes some mixtures. I'm really between the both worlds. There's a lot of grades of gray we do. The component is, if you understand that it's not just to first you make money and then you do good, but you actually, while you invest, you do good. So you can understand, if you invest in a certain company or in a certain fund, or a certain opportunity, what is actually that money doing? Where is it investing? And this is today, unfortunately, very politicized. ESG, for example, on these things. Unfortunately, because I think it doesn't make sense to politicize them, because it's nothing to do with being conservative or liberal. Nothing. It's really just smart to say, okay, if I invest anyway, let's say equity, let me see where I can invest, where actually the investment also contributes to people and planet. And this is where you also in a vocation side, which is the intention of impact investing, is you use money to resolve the biggest problems of the world. Also the intentionality, and also the additionality, where you want to make sure that money flows where normally it wouldn't flow. It's more difficult to flow. And that's where you play around with financial metrics to do so. But that was impact investing, that's why it's called. And this is where, back to your question, there's not enough money. Endeavors are much bigger, and right now, unfortunately, quite politicized in the geopolitics of today. But yes, that's the world I'm in, and that's a world I like. My own leitmotif is impact lives, share profits.
And where does joy fit in leadership?
What a beautiful question. If you truly enjoy what you do professionally, if you're in your zone and you're vocating, work is no longer a work, because it's bigger than you, you're contributing. And I can tell you, even when things are difficult sometimes, this greater meaning is such a joy. And again, it's not because I'm feeding my ego. If you do something you truly enjoy and you see what that causes to other people or to the planet, it is pure joy. And this is where the word joy is for me a very important one, because happiness is something up and down. But when you enjoy something because what you do has such a great contribution and you see the results of those afterwards, I mean, this is as joyful as it can get.
And if there would be a recipe to live a more joyful life, what would be the three main ingredients in your view and from your life journey today?
Yes. First one is, of course, vocation. Figure out what you really, really, really care for. That's a basis, because if you're not in your vocation, as I call it, if you're not in your zone, you're feeding your ego. The second component is, for me, is to stay humble. which means to manage your ego. We have all our egos, and we have to manage our egos. And the ego is to a certain extent also good because we all want to make a difference in the world. And that is pushed and that's necessary, but you have to manage your ego. So the more humble you stay, the less you have to deal with ego, and the more authentic you are also. And the third one is the power of vulnerability. But I learned I don't have to carry the shield. I can let the guard down. I can be vulnerable. And this is actually a power because people connect through vulnerability much more than just connecting because there's some money to gain or some fame to gain.
Beautiful. You're originally from Germany. You live in Switzerland, married to a Mexican lady, and you've also worked across cultures and continents. What have you learned about joy on this cultural journey?
Joy is contagious and it goes both ways. And if you're in Africa, you go to a small village, yeah, where people humble do some handcraft arts. And then suddenly one lady sings, the other comes, everybody sings, and you have a stand up choir. This goes under my skin everywhere. This is so amazing. And it's just natural. So that's something, one of the many examples I've learned. In order to have joy and to enjoy, you don't need anything. And for me, that's the part where I can go on. And in Latin America, I go in Asia, I can go in Switzerland, I can talk in Mexico. It's not related to only an area or something, but the simplicity of thinking positive, half a glass half full, not half empty, is an important driver. And this gives me back to one of sentences I learned from a boss many years ago. He was always saying, a no is a yes with conditions. So let's talk about the conditions. Because the no is anyway given. And this is where it goes back to the joy. I enjoy to talk about the conditions to hopefully get to a yes. So that is a win-win on both sides.
If you could leave our listeners with one question they should ask themselves before making a major decision, what would it be?
Wonderful question. If you are about to make a major decision for you, not for a business and transaction, but really for you, it's a big question is, you need to ask yourself, the decision I'm about to make, is it based on my intuition or is it based on my imagination? Because life afterwards will be very different based on that decision.
I love that. Florian, if someone listening today wants to discover more about your work, what is the best way to get in contact with you and explore everything we have spoken about?
Yes, go on the internet and look at on-vocation.com. There you find a lot of literature in these pieces for you, hopefully, to start to find your vocation and start vocating.
Wonderful. Any final words of wisdom that you may wish to share, or even give our audience a specific challenge to pursue this week in order to live more joyfully?
That is a great question. So, what has worked for me a lot is that you have to cut out the noise. To cut out the noise, using technology is pretty easy. So, I would invite people to pick a guided meditation around manifestation, because this is a nice one where it sets you in tune on a goal. And there are some nice ways. So I would recommend you to choose a platform, the ones where the practitioners are, like Insight Timer. You have thousands of possibilities in all languages, rather than a prefabricated one on other platforms. This is one I find, but you can find them anywhere. But I would invite, take a meditation, pick one. With the meditation, you lie in your bed, ideally mornings, put the earplugs in, no light, no disturbances, and then go through and listen to your body and listen to what your body says.
How can people truly know that they're tapping into their intuition when ideas emerge? How can people truly distinguish and make sure that they're pursuing the right path for them?
So, yes, what I do in order to differentiate imagination and intuition is with three things. Number one is I ask myself, is it a goal I want to achieve? Is it for me to be something or someone? Or is it for me to do something? Yeah, that's number one. So there you can already see, do I want to be a rock star or is it about playing music? The next question is it contributing to someone else, to humanity, to people, to the planet, or just for my own sake? Then you have another cursor. Yeah. And the last one is basically strength. If you listen to yourself, the intensity of the desire is a cursor. And very often, if the desire is too high, because I really, really, really want to be this, I really, really want to achieve this, you are off to an imagination path. Because an intuition is the desire to do something, but it's more the joy of the journey, not the pursuit of a feeling in the future I really, really want. So you have a third notion in order to differentiate between intuition and imagination.
Thank you. Beautiful. Florian, it's been an immense pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you for the beautiful work that you do, and look forward to reading the upcoming books. When are they coming out, actually?
So the past one is out, of course, already. The next one, I hope, in autumn this year. I'm going just finished, and now we need to go through the process of proofreading and things with the editor. And if things aligned, then next year, the third of the trilogy. That would be an ideal scenario for me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Florian.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being able to spread the word here out to your community.